Just about everyone here in the borderland knows the story of Billy the Kid. In the late 1800s, the outlaw ran wild from San Eli to Mesilla and beyond. But not everyone knows the story about the sheriff who brought law and order to the New Mexico territory. Tonight, CBS 410 Samantha Lewis brings us a story of Pat Garrett. That's tonight's special report.
Guinness! Guinness!
And in that moment, he may, just in that split second, may have realized that could have been Garrett.
No one expects to kill a legend.
It was this great tragedy of the American Civil War that set so much of this together.
The story of a sheriff chasing an outlaw. At 18, Pat Garrett rode to the New Mexico territory from Louisiana after the Civil War to find work as a rancher. Some years later, William Bonney, or Henry McCarty, aka the Kid, moved back to New Mexico to rustle cattle. He was wanted in Arizona for murder.
You got to remember there were a lot of cattle that were roaming around with no brands on. That's how Garrett met Billy, and they became acquainted, and they became friends, and they gambled together.
The friendship would eventually come to an end. In 1878, the Kid sought out for revenge over the murder of John Tunstall, a man Billy was close with. He was an English rancher that paid Billy to work on his land and gifted him with a six-shooter. In 1880, Garrett was elected sheriff of Lincoln County.
Garrett was to assume the role that went against the Kid.
First order of business, catch the Kid.
Billy knew that Garrett was after him, and he was being pursued.
During the Lincoln County War, Billy tracked down and killed the sheriff who authorized his men to kill Tunstall. Sheriff Garrett crossed county lines to bring Billy to justice. This is the county courthouse of Mesilla, New Mexico, where in April of 1881, Billy the Kid was sentenced to death by hanging for the murder of Lincoln County Sheriff William Brady. Deputies escorted Billy on horseback from Mesilla to Lincoln County.
He was never really given a fair trial, and that's shown by the evidence from the Mesilla trial.
On April 28, 1881, Billy broke out of jail, killing Deputy Sheriff James Bell and Deputy Marshal Robert Ollinger.
Garrett knew the hideouts and the habits of Billy and his gang.
Garrett tracked the outlaw to the home of a man they both knew, Pete Maxwell.
Billy probably saw Pat in the shadows and the dark of Pete Maxwell's bedroom. But in that last moment, he feared shooting a friend of Pete Maxwell's.
Guinness!
Garrett shot the Kid in the heart.
Pat Garrett is certainly respected to this day.
In 1886, Garrett became sheriff of Doñana County, tasked with solving the murders of prominent Las Cruces attorney Albert Jennings Fountain and his youngest son. Garrett caught the suspects one by one.
He's considered probably the top lawman in the state.
He was then appointed customs inspector in El Paso by Teddy Roosevelt.
Pat Garrett is the epitome of law and order. He was murdered in 1908 here in Las Cruces, and there's a lot of mystery still behind that.
Some historians say Garrett was shot by a man named Wayne Brazel after a bad deal over leased land.
He was turned away from Brazel when Brazel shot him.
The hearse that carried Garrett to his grave remains on display at the Sheriff's Museum in Doñana County. Garrett himself rests in the Masonic Cemetery in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Samantha Lewis, CBS 4 at 10.